The 1945 film The Lost Weekend, directed by Billy Wilder, was originally based off the book by the same title by Charles Jackson. Billy Wilder originally read the book as he was riding a train from New York to Hollywood. This movie stars Ray Milland as Don Burnham, who is the main character of the movie, as well as Jane Wyman as Helen James, as well as Frank Fallon as Bim. Other characters are Gloria, played by Doris Bowling, Nat, played by Howard Silva, and Wick, played by Philip Terry. And the main plot of the movie is Don Burnham, who is a writer, is trying to stay sober, so his girlfriend and brother try to get him on a getaway weekend, but instead he goes to the local bar and gets drunk and ends up in the hospital where he meets Bim, played by Frank Fallon, and once he gets home from the hospital, he ends up trying to commit suicide. The Lost Weekend was a very accurate depiction of the book called The Lost Weekend. Charles Jackson was very proud of how the movie ended out. The only major difference between the book and the movie is the main character, Bon, was actually a homosexual in the book, but they decided to cut that out for the times. The only gay character in the movie was Bim, played by Frank Fallon, who was the male nurse who the main character meets when he's in the hospital. Funny enough, the book was the only book that the author wrote while he was sober. All the other books that he wrote, he was under some sort of influence, which is kind of ironic, meaning the plot of the movie. I'm just going to end it off by playing 1 minute of the trailer of the movie.
The most startling novel of the decade, brought to the screen with uncompromising frankness, pulling no punches, knowing full well the storm it would cause. For this is a relentless, terrifying tale of 5 lost days and nights, torn from a man's life, bearing his heart and soul. The Lost Weekend, starring Ray Milland in one of the great performances of motion picture history, and Jane Wyman as the girl who shared his desperate journey into fear.
You just happen to walk in on this. Now, if you know what's good for you, you'll turn around and walk out again, and walk fast, and don't turn back.
Down strange, forbidden byways he wandered in search of his soul. One woman loved him too much to let him lose it. Another wanted him enough to take him without it.
You do like me a little, don't you, honey?
Why, Natch, Gloria, Natch.
Hey guys, the video I'm doing is The Lost Weekend. I'm in charge of the second part of our presentation, and the concepts I've chosen to go over is how they use the camera in this movie. So as you can see in this scene right here, we got this YouTube scene, The Benefits of Drinking, and he's talking to the bartender, talking about why drinking is so amazing. But right here you can see the camera has both of them in it in this one spot, doesn't tend to move at all, and as we watch you can see that. And then when they do switch it to right here, you got another angle where both of them are in it, and this is usually the most common movie angle. You have the guy right here facing this guy and he's in the corner. But they don't do it often. Again, right here they just switch to just him now. They don't keep it, you don't see his face in the corner. And so they just, you can see that they put the camera in different spots, and I'll get into more of that later. But my biggest concern that I noticed throughout this movie was that they break the rule of thirds. And if you don't know what the rule of thirds is, you got 3 sections, one done right here, one right here. It creates a middle and 2 sides, and then same going this way. So you have your 9 squares, and to the audiences, to the human being's eye, it's better to have a face down here or over here. It's the rule of thirds to have it in the corner on the side with some area on his head, not to put it right in the middle. And this is exactly what they are doing, is they put him right in the middle while he talks and does his whole scene. Right there, middle, doesn't leave the middle. Camera doesn't move, stays right there. And then goes to this guy, he's breaking rule of thirds as well. They have him right in the middle, the bartender right in the middle.
2 brothers.
Nothing in the rule of thirds, nothing over here. And then just to show you guys a little bit more, if we go over here, and we check out the whole movie, I can just show you some examples of how the movie's camera just doesn't change from what it is. So right here we got all of them dancing. they tend to use these wide shots to get the whole scene. And then right here, camera moves, and now we got both of them right here. And then we'll just skip forward again. Boom, camera's in this spot, and it's
See
not
that he
gonna
gets
move.
hot lemonade and some
That's
aspirin.
gonna sit right here and film
Bye.
it until the next scene where they put the camera in a different spot. Which would be
Oh, Miss St. James.
right here. Now they have this angle of them both right here in the street talking to each other. And yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was very interesting that they just purposely, I don't know if it was purposely or not. I just thought it was crazy to me that they break the rule of thirds. And how they just never use the camera to like get any emotion in it, if that does make sense. But yeah, very great movie, very deep message in the movie. But as far as, again, right here, you can see no rule of thirds is being used. He's right in the middle of the picture. But yeah.
This film, The Lost Weekend, was a detailed account of a man's battle with alcoholism. It was released in 1945. During the time of its release, Prohibition had just ended 10 years before. By the sound of it, you may think this movie is a Prohibition rhetoric, but it really wasn't. Heavy drinking wasn't really common in modern America until the 60s. World War II had ended the same year, 1945, and the Great Depression had just ended a few years before. With such a hard time in American history, this movie's legacy was far advanced for the time. It talks so openly and honestly about alcoholism, and many of Hollywood's biggest stars at the time were chronic alcoholics, but it was never really talked about. In the ending of the film, the main character, Don, was in rehab and escaped. He tries killing himself because Don just couldn't separate the fact that he was a writer and a drunk. He didn't see the difference. Nat, his girlfriend, tried persuading him, telling him that they're the same person, you are above your actions, you are more than alcohol, you're better than that, you know you deserve better. And a story so heartbreaking, a story so focused on, self-preservation, a story so focused on substance abuse and its effects was not something of the time. This movie, it was insane that this movie came out. Bill Wilder, the director, claimed that a liquor industry offered Paramount Pictures $5 million to halt the release of the film, and they said no. But Billy did say that if it was offered to him personally, he would have taken it. In 2011, it was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. This was the first film of its kind to speak on the bad effects of alcohol. This was the start of acknowledgement of a wide spectrum of substance abuse. Being such an old film while having such relevant topics today shows how impactful this film was in being the first of many. This film won 4 Oscars.